Good morning, Jess. Thanks very much for taking part in the Business Spotlight series. As
It's a
always, I'm going to
pleasure.
hand it, not at all, I'm going to hand it straight over to you to introduce yourself and what you do.
Thanks, Ed. So I'm Jess Lancashire. I'm the CEO and founder from Another. We are reimagining flexible work for 1 million families and 10,000 businesses by 2030.
Fantastic. So tell me a bit more what that involves.
We work with employees and employers. So we support individuals to normalise flexibility for themselves and the people around them. We support managers to gain the skills they need to support individuals and teams to navigate flexibility. And we support organisations to listen to people's experiences, generate new data, evidence and insight through our listening programme so that we can develop really impactful solutions with them.
Okay, excellent. So when you obviously said there if you support them. So what kind of things do you do?
So our listening programs for organisations, they are a mixed method qualitative research programme. We can mobilise within 4 weeks. They typically then run 4 to 8 weeks, and we combine surveys and in-depth, uninterrupted one-to-one conversations with people in an organisation or a sector. We then analyse all the data, and we then generate reports sharing our findings about people's experience of being human within that organisation and the types of interventions that an organisation may want to put in place to enable them to reimagine flexible work.
Brilliant. And how long have you been doing that for?
So we've been going for a year. We are doing a lot of work with working parents at the moment. We have our Reset course, which is running in September, which is for individuals. And then we have our Navigator programme, which runs in January, which is supporting managers.
Brilliant. And in terms of the types of companies or the size of companies that tend to come to you, who are they?
It's a really mixed bag. So we work with some really large organisations that have some very embedded cultures and processes and ways of doing things and are wanting to do something differently. We also work with some really small organisations who have a really great ethos and culture at their core, but as they are beginning to grow and scale, are needing to think really carefully about how they protect that and nurture that as the organisation changes.
Very interesting. And I don't know how much you can say, but I guess if maybe if you use a case study, what are the kind of things that you suggest to people sometimes, for example?
So it always changes depending on what comes out from each listening programme. We also run open listening programmes that we undertake ourselves from Another. We're just reporting on our flexible work listening programme. And so the suggestions, the findings that are coming out from that, we've just released our first report, and that talks about the importance of trust in relationships at work and how trust can be built and how it can be repaired when it's lost. Our second report is reimagining career progression within organisations and how we can think quite differently around that. And the third report is looking at role modelling. We hear a lot of talk about role modelling and the importance that it plays, and that was really demonstrated in our data that we gathered through the listening programme, that where people have had a positive experience of flexible working, it is because they have seen it being put into practice by somebody else. And so our report is going to really be looking at what you need to do to really support individuals to role model effectively.
Brilliant. And in terms of the business that's been going for a year, what are the plans for the business in the next 5 years?
So over the next 5 years, we're building the most inclusive listening programme for employees and managers. So it's not about necessarily getting to huge numbers, but what we're wanting to do is we're building a really diverse set of voices and experiences that we're able to draw on. We will be continuing to expand our programs. We're really excited about our Navigator program for managers. We know that 81% of managers agree that flexible work requires a different skill set from them as managers, but our data shows that only 44% of them feel they've had sufficient training in that. So we think there's a real opportunity. There's a lot of interventions available to help individuals rethink how they want to work, and a lot of things that individuals are encouraged to do. But we really feel that there needs to be that combination of supporting an individual and a manager for an organisation to really make the change that they want to see.
Hmm. And I guess when we're talking about flexible working, there are things like, I guess, flexible hours, which are more traditional, but I guess a big part of that now is remote working.
Remote working can be a big part of it. What we talk about in our report is actually frictionless flexibility, because what we see is that flexibility can drive a lot of friction in processes, in relationships between people, and that actually where the evidence shows people finding flexible working delivers those real benefits that they can gain. They talk about that reduced friction. They talk about they don't feel guilty about it. They feel trusted. They are given the autonomy that they want in order to be able to do their job. So I think it's a really interesting time for us to be bringing this new evidence to organisations and to individuals, because it feels like we've had this explosion of the potential of flexible working, and organisations and individuals now, sort of 3 years on from the pandemic, are starting to work through actually what's the sustainable model that we want to take forward with this. What is it we want to hold on to? What is it we want to let go of? And that's challenging for organisations and for individuals. So I think it's a really ideal time for organisations to be thinking really carefully about how they're doing this. And we know that there are organisations that are taking great care around this. And we know that there are things that can be done that will mean that you really gain the benefits of flexible working rather than the disbenefits.
That's really interesting. I mean, I think from what I've seen personally, when remote work started to expand, for example, some companies ended up doing, I think, more meetings because they couldn't see what people were doing and they wanted to have more contact. But on some of the research sides, from what I saw, and you might correct me on this, or I'm happy to hear that if that's the case, but the suggestion was that then breaks down trust, as opposed to what you mentioned before, giving people more autonomy. So I guess it's a fine line, people try and find the right way.
I think it is. And, we know that flexible work is a paradox. So for every benefit that you can identify around flexible work, there is a correlating disbenefit. So we know that flexible working means that you can reduce your commuting time as an individual, but we know it can also increase social isolation. So there is no single solution that's going to work either for any family or for any business. And I think one of the things that we spend a lot of time talking to organisations about is that you can have the policies, you can set a policy and you can set a framework, but what people really need actually is adaptability. And so you could have somebody who you have given part-time working arrangements to, so you've adapted their standard working hours and maybe where they work. But actually it's in the day-to-day experience that they have, whether they feel supported by their manager, that their child is sick and they can go and look after their child, or whether they feel they're being asked to compromise those two priorities in their life between work and family. And we see that, again, that having that planning is really, really important in helping people navigate what's the right way of structuring work for themselves and for their team. So being really clear on what is it that needs to be achieved by when, but also having a shared understanding of what people mean when it comes to flexibility. So does being able to work flexibly mean that I can work from home 2 days a week? Does it mean that I can come into the office whenever I feel like coming into the office? Does it mean that I can always go and pick my child up at 3:30? Does it mean that when my child's play is on, I can go and see my child's play? So it's just reducing the uncertainty, I suppose, and just trying to do whatever you can to eliminate that friction that can inevitably occur through flexible working.
Yeah, excellent. And thank you. And the other side of it, I suppose, talks about the growth for the business. What would you see as the challenges for the sector you're in?
That's a great question. I think one challenge is remaining agile enough to be open to the challenges that organisations or individuals bring to us, but I think still maintaining a focus on where we can add the most value and what will enable us to continue to grow a sustainable business. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in a lot of different areas, and we can't fix it all today. So it's really about staying focused but still responsive, I think, to the things that people are experiencing.
Indeed. And look, it's obviously I'm sure it's been an interesting year, first year of having the business. What would you say has been the biggest learning you've had in that time?
So this business has actually spun out of another business, which I set up when COVID hit. And I think the biggest I came from a corporate background. And so it's taken time to unlearn some of those corporate behaviors, practices, which don't serve you well in far more sort of entrepreneurial startup setting. I think it's been really wonderful to see the power of having a really mission-driven organization and having the freedom and the flexibility to do things that you want to do. And I think I would say the biggest learning has actually been that the more open you are about what you're there to do, how you can help people and how you operate, actually makes it much easier to find the right people as your customers or to join your team, because you're putting as much out there as you can right at the start. And I think that's been really, really powerful for us. We've just gone out to advert for a really brilliant new role, and we've had over 100 people come and apply to us. And so that freedom to just be really explicit and honest about what we do and how we do it, I think is a really powerful tool for us.
Brilliant. And look, behind that, you mentioned there the influence, the impact of being mission driven. So what is it that inspires you?
What inspires me are the people that we're talking to every day. So every day we are having extended conversations with managers, with parents, with leaders in businesses. And it is astonishing the stories that people will share, how open and how generous people will be with their experiences, because they can see that we are able to develop interventions and solutions that will make it different for somebody else. And I think also just how resilient and determined people are to improve environments, cultures within organisations for themselves and their family. It can be very moving, but it's always really inspiring.
That's very nice, thank you. And as a final thing, is there any news or any offer you'd like to extend to the audience?
Yeah, so we have our Reset course, which enables individuals to transform their relationship with work, and our cohort is starting in September of this year. And if you sign up before the end of June, there's a 30% discount on the course fee. So that's a fantastic offer for people to get under their belt before they head off for summer holidays and then head into September. And they'll have an amazing 6 weeks with us, and with some incredible other people, and really get what they need for what the demands of their family and their work and their aspirations are, to take them forward.
Fantastic. Well, that's a really great offer. Thank you very much for that. And look, thank you very much for taking part. It's been great to find out more about what you do.
It's a pleasure.
Looking forward to seeing the developments as you get bigger.
Thanks so much, Ed.
Thanks, Jess.